All right. Hey, Edward.
Holy, is that a lake?
No, that's actually clouds and there's mountains. So it's just like beautiful. Like the clouds are just amazing.
Oh,
We are at the foothills of Himalayas in Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama stays. Big fan of Dalai Lama. I
oh
think.
yeah,
Are we,
just there in September.
oh, okay. Wow. Wow. That's great. What are you doing
So the
there?
old no,
Say again.
I saw the old man himself.
Oh, wow. So what was the highlight? Let's start with that. Let's start with that because I think we need more compassion and like we need more mindfulness and calmness in the current situation. So if you can share about that experience, that would be a good start.
I mean, it. I've been reading his books and following his message to the world, and it's a very unique one, especially given his background and how he grew up. I mean, he was basically bestowed saying, when he's like 5 years old or something, you're you're going to be the person who's going to lead the people. And he's gone through such difficult times, but at the same time, despite all of that, and despite having every reason to be, you know, either someone who's spoiled or angry and wants to take revenge, he's basically the champion of like compassion. You can see that radiating out of him. Um, and so last year, before I went to the UK to study, then I saw that he had a session which invited everyone to come along. So and I had to go back to India anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see the old guy. So I went down and I guess you could really see that magic. I mean, there was 1,001 people there, and when he was walking in and out, it was chaotic as hell. You can't really feel it, but and I'm not a Buddhist, you see, but when you're doing the chants and everyone was like kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like reverberating in the same way, you can feel that oneness or that being in a place. And yeah, I think there's a sense of consciousness and calm which you just don't see, or which I find really hard to get by myself.
Yeah.
And it was there in that moment and in that space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing, man. That's amazing. And I have two thoughts in my mind. One thought is about you as a person who's always been very curious and who doesn't give up any opportunity to go experience new things. I'm reminded of Jagriti Yatra as one of the experiences that led to the founding of Givfunds. And the other thought that I have is this concept of oneness, which I think the world is experiencing right now uh, due to coronavirus situation. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's start with the curiosity part. Like, how was this curiosity cultivated in you, and uh, whether you have or do experience that fear of unknown, and like how do you overcome that fear? Because yeah, you're constantly doing things which are off the usual path, and I wonder, like, how did that start, and how do you cultivate, and how do you keep going in that path?
To be honest, when I grew up, I really wasn't that kind of person. I wasn't very curious about the world. I wasn't very um I wasn't like kind of seeking the next adventure. I wasn't really even that interested in traveling, to be very honest. Um I think but once it kind of got me, I kind of got hooked onto it like a drug. To always grow, to always travel, to always see that unknown, because I think and I still feel that I'm so far from where I want to be. And I think there's so much to learn along the way. And at least today, at least for the past 6 years or so, if I stay at one place for too long, in terms of my head space, in terms of where I am as a person, there's this itch which I just can't
Mm,
control, and
mm,
I have to grow more. Or at least I somehow feel the need to grow more, and
Yeah.
it comes through one way or the other.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I guess as you mentioned, it came from all these experiences, whether it was Jagriti Yatra or staying a month in Bangladesh. Actually, that kind of kickstarted everything. Where I went to UNIS Center to learn about social enterprises and social businesses. It's actually my first time overseas alone,
Yeah.
and I spent a month in Bangladesh in Dhaka.
Yeah.
The moment I
Amazing.
landed in the airport, I got scammed.
Wow.
Yeah, and after that, just went downhill from there. Um, then started backpacking. I started traveling with and visiting social entrepreneurs, and I saw that the world was so much bigger than my worldview and how I saw things. It wasn't just about earning money. It wasn't just about being in Singapore. It wasn't just about, um, you know, having a comfortable life.
Yeah.
It came more about how do you have a fulfilling life? How do you find it? How do you have a content life? And how do you create value?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that change in how I saw the world through all these experiences actually got me down this rabbit hole. Um, yeah, even now I'm still struggling with that question, those questions, right? How do you grow back to be a better person? What's the next stage and what's the next step after this? Um, how do you create more impact?
Yeah.
How do you become a useful human being?
Yeah.
And especially in these times during this COVID-19 period, I think those assumptions start to get questioned,
Yeah.
and you start to think about what's important, and to some extent also I'm starting to see how my privilege and my position is something which I unfortunately default to. For example, like I have the privilege to even in the UK, despite having the NHS and a relatively robust healthcare system, I have the privilege to just cut and run and come back to Singapore. And that was my tendency, and it's shown by my actions as well. It's not necessarily to go to somewhere like India to help, for example. And I think I'm starting to grapple with how I see myself and think about all of this.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how else to answer your question. It's really,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess, life events and the unknown actually teaches you so much, and that's
Yeah.
why
Absolutely.
going after
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think one thing which I'm reminded is that in your actions, consciously or unconsciously, you have always gone down the path of total immersion, right? Like you wanted to learn about microfinance. What do? You go to Bangladesh and you like work with the UNIS Foundation to learn from the best in the world, and then you want to learn about mindfulness and like loving kindness and compassion. What do? You go to Dharamshala to be in the same room as the Dalai Lama. And again with Jagriti Yatra, can you share with those who might not know about Jagriti Yatra, like what is it the epicenter of, and like what brought you there?
Absolutely. So, I guess the roots of Jagriti Yatra really came from Gandhi's journey. So Gandhi took a train journey across the whole of India with the idea of really talking and reaching out to the lay person, to every person in India, whether they're from the village, from the city, from different castes, from tier one, tier two, tier three cities, different income levels, and 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 he took time to reach out and talk to these people. So back in 1997, I believe, there was the very first Jagriti Yatra, where they tried to emulate a similar journey to get citizens, regular citizens and people of India to go around the country on a 16-day train journey to learn about the real India. And for those who might not know about India, who've not been in India, that it's such a diverse, different country with so many cultures, languages, types of people. In fact, many people who might have grown up in a city might have never been in a village or seen what a village is like or even been to a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 city at all. They've only been to big metropolitan cities. And I think the idea back then was really to gather all these different people together in one place, to travel around India to see the real India. That was in 1997. It was supposed to be a one-off trip. But a couple of years later, I think it's in 2008 or 9, they decided to restart this as a yearly journey. A journey to build India through enterprise. And it was really built around this idea. How can you bring people from all stratas of society, all income levels, huge diversity, Indians from a huge diversity, to come together to understand how India is really like across the whole of India. So it takes 16 days to travel around the perimeter of the whole of India and to learn about India and live in a village and talk to change makers, some of the largest social enterprises, non-profits across the country. And every year there's a sprinkling of us, like foreigners, like 5 to 10 of us, who come in to experience that alongside everyone else. So that there's like they book an entire train, 500 plus people, and throughout this journey you sleep in AC, not sleeper, non-AC, which is basically a small room without any air conditioning, where you have 8 people stuck in the same cabin of sorts. I think it's like as small as 3 meters by 1.5 meters or something. And you live beside people. So back in 2016, I took my first Jagriti Yatra. And that was just off the backs of a backpacking trip I took across Southeast Asia as well, where I stayed with social entrepreneurs. So I've never been to India before that, and it was the very first time I've been to India and my very first journey to India. And that trip just blew up India to me. Like, yeah, not blew up, it exposed me to India. It helped me see what India is like, and it gave me a network of friends who I still really talk to today. That's where I met my co-founder. Our first advisor came from there for Givfunds, for the non-profit impact fund I run. Our first beneficiary came from there. Our first hire came from there as well, from the very same train journey. I went back again a couple of years later. I think it's 2018 I went back. But I only went for 4 days then. 16 days again was a little rough.
Yeah.
Basically, you couldn't really shower very well. They converted a few like seating bunks into showers, which you could basically shower for the first 8 days or so. But after that, it just got too cold because it became winter.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and, and everyone is filthy and smelly. But after 3 days, you basically lose your sense of smell and your perception of dirt. I enjoy the process with everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, man. And so tell me more about Givfunds. Tell me like how the journey has been from the time when I think we were discussing. It was an idea. You came to our office in Liangxia Street, and
Yeah.
it was an idea back then. But now you've already showing great promise in India. So I want to know like maybe some key moments from that point to now.
I think when I first met you, I come back from I just came back from working in the States in the Bay Area, um, under a program in my university back then. And I was really kind of toying and playing around with the idea of gift funds. How can you provide help to these to change makers, to social entrepreneurs which I met along the way, who were doing this incredible work? They were changing thousands of lives, but they weren't getting the support needed to change it, and to fulfill their visions, um, despite their businesses being profitable and incredibly impactful. And I think one of the gaps which I saw was really capital. And I was talking to everyone about this, and we were thinking about how we could actually solve that problem. we had no idea what to do. I mean, everyone has experience in SME financing. He runs a boutique investment banking company, or he used to run it. And he's kind of handling it here and there now. I had some experience in finance and venture fundraising, but this was a completely different ballgame. And if I had known what I do now, I probably wouldn't have started it all together. Yeah, so we really didn't know what to do, but we knew we knew what we wanted to solve. We knew the problem which we wanted to solve, and we knew it extremely well because we saw it firsthand. We saw it really literally live. Like by that time, I probably visited 50, 60 social enterprises. I stayed with a couple of them overnight. I stayed with families of these social entrepreneurs. They fed me and they showed me the operations, and I knew the problem. And I thought in my head, it didn't make sense that people who were changing the world, people who were pushing humanity forward, weren't able to get the resources needed to do it. And the question then was, how can we help them get that resources to change the world, to do what they're so good at doing? Because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it. I knew I wouldn't be, I knew that, especially back then, I didn't think I had it in me to stay in a slum, to work with communities there, to work in a prison in India, to work in a village in like Bangladesh, or all these places. But these people, they gave up everything to do that. And so the next best thing I could do was really to support them. So we experimented with a few things. And I think for a year or so, we were quite lost in terms of how we were going to best support them. We came up with all sorts of different ideas. We made a lot of mistakes, wasted a lot of money as well, to be honest. Our first hire was a CTO. And the thing is, Irwan and I, we don't know anything about technology. So we didn't realize that this CTO didn't know anything about technology either. And so we blew a couple of $1,000 on that, trying to build a platform to do investments in social enterprises online and all of that. We realized it didn't work along the way. But I think things only really solidified after I spent some time in India on the ground. And that's when we went back to our core, our root, in terms of understanding the problem. And while we understood the problem from social enterprises perspective, we didn't understand the problem from every other perspective. From the ecosystem players supporting them, from the investors trying to support them, from the donors trying to support them, from the government within India. And frankly speaking, a lot of these lessons were transferable around the world. So basically what we ended up doing was we started talking to people. We started understanding the problem better. And the solution just kind of came out from that.
Yeah.
Being able to provide low cost capital to social enterprises by working together very closely with ecosystem players. Because what the beauty is that what we found out is most impact investors and most funders have a very high difficulty in reaching out to individual social enterprises because it's just so difficult to do that. There are thousands, millions of them across India, across Asia, across the world. But when we started talking to ecosystem players, we realized that, hey, these are people who understand what are the great social enterprises working in the area and also see the exact same problem which we were seeing, feel for the exact same problem we were seeing. They knew that these people were changing lives. They are profitable and they've been running it for years.
Yeah.
But yet they are not able to gain access to capital. Yet they're not able to gain access to resources. And they keep coming back to the same ecosystem players, to the same incubators, to the same accelerators, to the same non-profits helping social enterprises for help. They're not able to do that. And I guess along the way, we just connected the dots. If they needed help, if these people knew them so well, why don't we work very closely with these nodes of sorts, spread all across India? And based on their understanding, based on their relationships with these social enterprises, we basically rely on the trust which we have with them and the trust which they have with their social enterprises to provide capital. And through that means, we're able to build a lot of trust and ensure very high compliance, to make sure that they're not just people who just come in, take the money and then leave.
Yeah.
They're actually people committed to the ground.
Yeah.
Um, and since then we've kind of evolved, but it's really based on that same model, um, based on a model of trust, based on a model of understanding, and then using fancy data and all of that to try to automate a lot of that process and to scale it up. But ultimately, that's really how our model is based on. It's really when we understood the problem well enough, the solution just kind of appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see this as a recurring theme of like being on the ground and like talking to users and just immersing yourself in their lives. And this thing that you said, like the answer just kind of emerges from that experience, right? Like you
Yeah.
just have to listen, and like it will just emerge. And I think it was very similar when we were starting Give Asia as well, which is
Yeah.
we went and talked to, I think, about 40-50 charities in a
Yeah.
period of like a couple months. And after that, like we didn't even have to second guess, like what was the problem or what was the gap that we could fill in the market. So I
Yeah.
think that's very great. And I also think like what you have is very special because you have a very clear understanding of who your target user is, like, or like if Nike was to build a statue, a gold statue in front of its headquarters, it will be that of an athlete. And for your case, it will be that of like a social entrepreneur or that change maker. So I think that is very great because your focus is always about like bringing innovation and bringing inspiration to the social entrepreneur, to the change maker. Yeah. Um,
Really. Yeah. I mean, they humble me all the time.
mhm.
If I just look at the stories of our social entrepreneurs, um, we have, for example, Elena. She's been in working in the Har prison in Delhi for the past two and a half years now. I think she's the only like female, the only women in the entire wing, and Tihar is the most. For those who don't know, it's the most notorious prison in India. Um, we have social entrepreneurs who gave up their lives in Canada to come to India to work on the ground in rural Maharashtra to work with farmers there. With social entrepreneurs who spend a year talking to auto drivers to understand their problem. And these people really inspire me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since you spend a lot of time with social entrepreneurs, and as you said, like they are going to this extreme lengths to like make the world a better place and like help society. Sometimes even at the expense of their, I would say, personal lives. Um, are there any things that you see from them? Like, is there something which social entrepreneurs know, which the general public doesn't know or doesn't realize?
I I think they have a what or different sense of what they want out of life. Um, and I think so as Muhammad Yunus would say, I forgot his quote, but something about super happiness.
Interesting.
Help other people with super happiness.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and I think that they've kind of reached that point where they realize what makes them happy, what makes them, let's say, when they're 80 years old, look back on life and say, I've led a good life. It's not what many people would say. It's not necessarily, or actually, to be very honest, it's what many people would say. People would say, especially if you look at eulogy, people will say, oh, this person, so and so was a good family, was a good husband, was a good wife, was a good mother, was a good daughter, was a good son, was a good father, um, always supporting friends around them, always helping the world, always looking beyond their communities. And I think what these people have realized is maybe we should live life according to what that eulogy says,
Yeah. I
according to how people think about what a fulfilling life is.
yeah.
Because a lot of people know it, and a lot of people are probably pretty accurate about what that would look like. It's just that on a day-to-day basis, it's hard to remember and hard to follow.
Yeah.
And it's hard to follow for me as well. For I'm sure a lot of people. I just see that in these social entrepreneurs more than anyone else.
Yeah.
They they find it difficult, but they realize that's what makes them happy.
Yeah.
That's what makes a good life, and that's what value. That's how much value they can provide to the world.
It's amazing, man. And I looked up the quote. So the quote is by Muhammad Yunus: "Making money is happiness, and that's a great incentive. Making other people happy is a super happiness."
Yeah. That's the quote.
I mean, this is an amazing quote, man. This is an amazing
Yeah,
quote. Yeah, this is an
yeah.
amazing quote. Yeah. So, so you are providing this. You are helping social entrepreneurs get closer to the super happiness. You're also helping impact investors to, through the social entrepreneurs, provide happiness and also feel a little bit of that super happiness. And I guess as a platform provider, you're also experiencing that super happiness yourself, for yourself and the team. Yeah, that's an amazing quote. Like, it's the first time I've come across this quote, but I think it encapsulates the motivation a lot. Even for our team at Give Asia, like, when we see beneficiaries or people who are able to overcome medical emergency, yeah, that's super happiness. Like, making money is happiness, but like, yeah, making other people happy is super happiness. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a very good one. um, you actually mentioned something uh, which is definitely true, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs talk about this, that if they knew it was this hard, if it was going to be this hard, they might have not done it. Right.
Yeah.
If they knew what they know now, they might have not done it. um, I wonder if you can maybe, as much as possible and as much as okay, like, share, uh, yeah, like, where was it that maybe you underestimated, or maybe you guessed something different from what was the reality?
So I think one of the biggest difficulties for me is as a foreigner coming to a completely different country, especially a country like India, and thinking I could work with my very usual way of working and and practices. And not just India, but so over the past few years I've been spending time in Myanmar and Vietnam and Philippines to really understand the market. And 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 in all these countries, adapting how I work and talk to people and meeting people was and how I think as well was probably one of the biggest difficulties.
Yeah.
So I mean, for this journey, there were times that we had to figure out, you know, what you do when someone asks you for a bribe. What do you do when people who are 30, 40 years older than you don't believe what you're saying, even though you know it's true, and you need their help to do it? What do you do to convince people who are skeptics, who don't believe in social entrepreneurs, that social entrepreneurs are able to really create change? And I think a lot of these times it wasn't the operations, it isn't it isn't actually getting down to the meat of starting a company and doing and and actually helping the social entrepreneurs through the problem. It's because of the way our business is structured. It's 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 interacting with people, is always meeting people and influencing people and trying to buy them to your side. And that was so difficult because before I started on this, I was like, I might have the technical skills, I might know how to do to move finance around, move money around, and spreadsheets and yada yada yada. But that wasn't the bottleneck, and that was the least of our problems and the least work in there. The biggest problem was adapting to a new culture, adapting to really awkward situations where you're like, should I follow my values or should I kind of bury it for the sake of the greater good, if there's even such a thing at all.
Yeah.
And I think those decisions along the way were probably the most difficult ones.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I can only imagine because you're working in so many different cultures, like, how different, ways of working and ways of thinking are, and they definitely put you in a lot of interesting situations. Um, and I mean, doing a startup or doing a social enterprise startup or, running a nonprofit is definitely a self-development journey. It's a way in which you will be put into situations where you have to look at it and say that, oh, here's where I could have done better. These are the skills that, I need to improve. And every time I talk to you, I feel like you are growing as a person. You're growing as a communicator. You're growing as a leader. So if you can share for aspiring entrepreneurs, aspiring change makers, what are some of the skills which you believe are worth investing into, especially given this time where a lot of people are working from home and they, maybe have some, uh, yeah, some time to reflect and some time to invest into new skills. What would be those skills?
that's a really good question, actually. Um, I I guess you could call it a skill. I wouldn't. It's not a very conventional skill. It's not like you can do a course on it or anything. Um, I think it's really talking and learning from people. Um, over the past few years, I think the points where I remember myself learning the most was through stories and experiences, but every single one of them involved the people, experiences of people, conversations of people. And most of my learnings over the past few years have really been through people. Always asking them questions, always picking their brains on what's on what they're good at and what they're experts at.
Yeah.
And and asking them to point you in a direction to follow up or to learn more.
Yeah.
And I guess during this time, you have tons of people, incredible people who are really free, who are, sitting around at home and would love a break from anything besides watching like the news and
Yeah.
what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
And so maybe just asking them for conversations and to learn from them is probably one of the best things you can do during this time, since a lot of people are more free.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest skill which
Yeah.
I'll say is the most useful and the one which I've learned the most over the years.
Mm.
Because there's tons of courses you can do, there's tons of books you can read, and they're great knowledge. A lot of them have a lot of these courses and books have shaped how I think as well. And I'm not discounting that, but I think each of us has our own journey and path. And while there are some books and courses which would maybe not courses, but really books which might shape how you think and how you see the world, I think people really do that more than anything else.
Yeah.
And experiences really do that more than anything else.
Yeah.
And we can't have much experiences while everyone is stuck indoors and staying safe and
Yeah.
social distancing.
Yeah.
Um, you can do it through calls. You can do it by talking to really interesting people who currently have nothing much to do.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
be happy to chat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. So Edward, I would like to end this by asking you one question, which I always like to ask, which is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received. It's from my friend called Asi.
Apart from that.
I'm trying to think actually. And I think it came from one of my mentors who said, never lose that idealism and never stop trying. Because you need people around the world who keep doing it.
Mm.
Kind of paraphrasing.
Yeah, yeah,
I think a lot of people have stopped trying.
yeah.
A lot of people have stopped trying to to achieve their dreams, to achieve a fulfilling life, to achieve the impact they want to do, and they want to create, because of the realities of the world and because they're being practical and pragmatic.
Yeah.
And while there's something to that, I don't believe in following. I grew up as a pragmatist, as a realist. I think it's being practical about what's happening around you, but being idealistic about where you want to go,
Mm.
what you want to achieve,
That's a good one.
and constantly trying to achieve that. Because the world will give you shit for it.
Yeah.
But if you keep trying, then, as Jack Ma would say, the day after tomorrow will be beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And yeah, actually, that was in the last question. So the question I have for you now is that if you could post any message on a billboard, what message would you want to put on a billboard?
On a billboard, I would actually give, I would actually, maybe on a billboard, I'll say that I think for a lot of people in impact, they think that the world is going to shit. There's a lot that needs to be done. I think the message which I would give, not just to people who work in impact and development, but to people around the world, is the world is getting better.
Mm, that's a good one.
Actually, any account, the world is getting better.
Yeah.
Um, this is the best time to be ever alive, to be born in this world. And that's based on any metric you look at: gender equality, education, healthcare, um, income levels, everything. The world in all accounts is getting better.
Yeah.
And one of the books which shaped my thinking around this is Factfulness, by Hans Rosling, and The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker, or Steve Pinker,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And it talks about all of this. And for me, it doesn't make sense to be bailing water out of a sinking boat when the holes aren't fixed. And I think that as 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 people, as humanity, it shows that our collective action has made a difference.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we continue to make a difference using our collective action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great message, Edward. I think this has been an amazing chat. I really learned lots of interesting things from you, including super happiness. And yeah, I really hope the best for you, your team. Every time I see you guys, you're making great progress. Keep moving, and like, as you said, like keep dreaming, keep striving to be the best, and to make the world better. And I'm sure you will continue to do that. So where can people find more about you and your projects?
You can find us on www.givfunds.org. So that is GIVFUNDS.org. That's our website. And feel free to drop me an email as well, or connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and drop me a message there.
That's great.
My name is Edward E. Yee. Yeah.
Awesome, Edward. Thank you so much, and hope you have a
Thank
good
you.
one and stay safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Yeah. You too.
Yeah.
Take care and enjoy your beautiful view.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks.